everyone doesn't mind muting themselves, and that way we can hear the presentations better. And then in your top right corner, you'll want to have it on speaker view because we're going to be putting a presentation up so that you might want to follow along the PowerPoint. So if the top right corner, you put it on speaker view, that would be awesome. So a few weeks ago, Roni and Michelle reached out to us and they offered to help us deal mentally with the pandemic in ways of mindfulness, nutrition, and movement. With the devastating events that took place in the weekend in Colchester County, we all know about, it's even more important that we make sure that we stay connected with our mind and the thoughts that we have going on. I know a lot of us are wearing red today across the country, you know, as a sign of support for the families that have gone through that tragedy. So just to introduce you to the ladies today, Michelle Greenwell and Roni Davis are going to speak to us about stress, mindless and emotional eating, and how we may be able to manage all that snacking we've been doing. I know the bag of chips is always on the counter. So Michelle Greenwell is a bioenergetic wellness facilitator in the area of nutrition and wellness. This means that she can determine the needs of the body and for optimum health and use feedback from the body through muscle monitoring. She's currently working on a doctorate in integrative health and specializes in the messages the body shares through posture, gait, expression, and action. As Touch for Health instructor, she has almost 2 decades, 20 years of experience with understanding how the health and the body supports the organ systems and the overall energy of the body. Her approach to wellness is experienced by her students and clients from walking age to grandparenthood. Roni Davis is going to be our lead today for the session, and Roni has been training and coaching women who struggle with weight and food for the past 10 years. 8 of those years were spent transforming bodies as an award-winning personal trainer and nutrition and wellness coach, and the last 2 transforming brains as a mindfulness-based cognitive behavior coach and the founder of Cognitive Eating. She personally spent 20 years struggling with weight and emotional eating, binge eating, depression, and an anxiety disorder. Praised by her clients for her direct yet compassionate approach, Roni is on a mission to change the way women view food and their bodies. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Roni and Michelle, for offering to help us through these times. And you guys can take it over.
Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to be here. I don't own anything red, but I do have a scarf that has a little bit of red in it, so that's my contribution. It's the best I could do. So as Susan mentioned, the thing that we wanted to run with for these events is really staying connected with ourselves. This week, our Nutrition Week is no different. It is Nutrition Week, but I'm not really going to be talking about a whole lot about actual nutrition. Rather, I'll be talking about why we eat the ways that we eat, why you shouldn't be trying to be good with food, why awareness and connection with ourselves and our bodies is the key to changing it. And I'm going to leave you with some actionable strategies that you can start practicing today. And I'm going to pound through this pretty quick because I got a lot that I want to get to. So if I go fast, there will be a recording. So if we want to have a conversation about food and protecting our mental and physical health, we need to first acknowledge what happens when we feel mindlessly and uncontrollably driven to the fridge 100 times a day and can't stop eating things that make us feel like crap for reasons that we don't really understand. Because in my experience, what happens is that we feel guilty, we feel ashamed, we worry about gaining weight, and we feel like we're alone in it all. And none of those things are good for our mental or physical health. On top of that, they often drive us to make more choices that make us feel like crap, and that just all adds to the stress that we're already feeling. So the first thing that I want to say is that however you have been managing food lately is 100% normal, it is okay, and you need to give yourself permission to just do whatever you need to do to get through this. But I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. First, I want to talk about some of why it happens so you get that it's not your fault. On the surface, the biggest, most easily blamed culprits of constant snacking lately are things like boredom, overwhelm, fear. This week, I'm sure grief is a big one. But those are really just the surface level causes. At its core, stress eating, emotional eating, even binge eating, all of those patterns of behavior that we develop around food develop because our brains are trying to problem solve as quickly as possible. That's it. They're basically just problem solving computers. You know, your brain is up there spending its day trying to keep you safe and alive. That's its job, and it's pretty good at it. But it's not always super efficient. It's locked up there alone in your head. It cannot see, hear, or feel what's going on around it. So it's got to rely on interpreting millions of little signals that it receives from your body, the way that your senses are perceiving your environment, and the stories that it's picked up over the course of your life about who you are, what you're worth, and how you should live. And it also relies on your memory bank, the habit center in our head, for much of the problem solving, which means that much of the problem solving is being done behind the scenes. And this is where the programming can get buggy and drive us to the fridge 100 times a day. Life is busy, we're distracted, our thoughts race, we're disconnected from our thoughts, from the present moment, and from our bodies. And we don't like to feel uncomfortable things. We just don't. We're a species that likes to numb. We're actively taught to ignore our bodies, to listen to other people's advice about what they need and what we should eat. And as a result, we stop being able to hear or understand what they tell us. But our brains are still getting the signals that they send out. And it drives our behaviors as a result of the signals that it's getting. So here's an example of how that may be playing out in your life a little bit so you can see what I mean. You wake up and you remember that, you know, everything that's going on, suddenly it hits you, you start having some kind of thoughts about it. You know, you sigh, you're trying to stay positive, but those realizations come with some kind of feelings. Your brain gets the signal that you're feeling some kind of way. In this case, you know, probably fear, overwhelm, uncertainty, dread, all kinds of things. That's a trigger. And you probably don't even notice that it's happening because you've already got kids screaming in your ear. You probably get a dog that wants to go out for a walk. And you've probably been promising yourself that you're going to get back on track today and you're going to be good with food today, which then makes your brain afraid that it's not going to get its favorite breakfast sandwich. The survival center in your brain is now officially in overdrive over the thought of not being able to eat what you want if you're being good. But again, you don't even notice what feelings are landing within your body with all of those thoughts because there's so much going on and you're not connected to anything going on inside yourself. But it's okay. You don't have to worry about sorting any of those thoughts and feelings out anyway because your brain has your back. It's on the job. It has already gotten the signals from your body about the emotions that those thoughts produced, and it's been searching its memory banks for a solution. In less than a fraction of a second, it remembered that time in 1984 when you were little and upset and grandma gave you a cookie and a hug and she told you everything was going to be okay. It really felt good and it made you feel better. So your brain saved that moment in its solution to feelings of upset file so that it could pull it back up faster the next time you were upset. At the same time, it remembers the other 100,000 times since then that food has made things feel better. So it determines that food is the answer. Perhaps even so specifically that it determines a cookie is the answer. Before you even realize what you're doing, you're standing in front of the pantry reaching for the cookies. And you've got no chance of figuring out what just drove you to the pantry for those cookies because now your thoughts are too busy doing something like this. Tell me if this sounds familiar. What are you doing reaching for the cookies again? Oh my God, stop. You're going to gain 20 pounds by the time this is over. Stop eating already, right? And then you're instantly flooded with a hefty shot of fear, which drives you to want the cookie even more over the thought of gaining weight. But you don't even notice again because the thoughts are still going. I'll just have one. God, you're so pathetic. You're supposed to be good today. It's not even 10 a.m. and look at you at the cookies again already. Oh, may as well eat them all. Since I screwed up anyway, I already blew it. I'll start again tomorrow. And the rest of the day just ends up following the same pattern. Even if it's just boredom, your brain determines that there's a problem and it's searching for a solution without you even knowing what's happening. There's zero awareness, just a drive to eat. So it goes like this. There's a trigger that you probably didn't even notice has happened. In a fraction of a second, less than a fraction of a second, your brain searches for a solution, determines it's food, you reach for this food, and any attempts to diet or try to be good with food is blown, and you're feeling all guilty and bad, and it's making the stress that you're trying to manage through all of this feel even harder and heavier and worse. And again, because it's happening behind the scenes, you don't even know what's going on. That's a pretty normal pattern for most people. So if you've been judging yourself and worried about waking, try to start remembering that those things are not helpful and let those things go. No judgment over what you eat. The reality is the choices that you've been making may not always be the most nutritious and nourishing, but they are always serving some purpose, so they're okay. And I know that that sounds crazy, but here's the thing. We can recognize when we're doing something that may not serve our best interests long-term, perhaps may even be full-on destructive long-term, or what we would normally judge to be bad. But in the moment, when we're making a choice, any choice, we are doing the very best that we can with what we know or are capable of in that moment. So if everything that I'm doing is serving me in some way in this moment, how can it be bad? As somebody who spent close to somewhere between 20 and 30 years feeding emotions, I don't remember what date it started and ended. I didn't learn to stop judging myself, or I didn't learn to stop by judging myself for it, or trying to force myself to stop. I learned to stop in part by recognizing that feeding emotions, eating for reasons other than hunger, aren't always bad things, even if we're doing them in ways that don't make us feel good. And judging ourselves for it only makes it worse. What we need in those times is self-compassion. We need grace, we need self-compassion, we need kindness, and we need love. Learning to just be with normal emotions can be tough enough on a good day. And right now, people are trying to manage some pretty overwhelming and monstrous-sized emotions, probably way beyond anything anybody's ever experienced before. It's okay if what you're feeling sometimes just feels too big to be with on your own. In those instances, think of food like a hug or a friend just holding your hand. It's just giving you a little extra support when you need it the most. It is human to need extra help sometimes, and it's also very human to lean on food for that help sometimes. So sometimes in the moment, eating the cookie or whatever might be the kindest choice you can make for yourself. And for me, the distinction lies between whether or not it's being done from a place of kindness and support and making you feel a little bit better versus shame and punishment and making you feel worse. And again, that understanding requires awareness. Now, most advice for mindless, emotional, and autopilot eating, again, in my experience, is fairly unhelpful because, it's basically just a list of activities that you can do instead of eat, or a list of foods to not eat. But those things are completely dismissive of exactly how powerful the drive to eat can feel. And they do nothing about the wiring in your brain that keeps causing it. So what happens when no matter how hard you try, you feel like you cannot stop eating those things on that list of no foods? And what happens after you do everything on the list of activities that you want to eat, and you still want to eat your way through the kitchen? You feel even worse because you feel like you're failing. But you're not failing. There's a reason you feel like eating. Something's driving that action. There's something going on in us that we're trying to fix with food. And without awareness, we're unable to identify what the actual need really is in those moments. So trying not to eat or trying to busy yourself so that you don't think about it doesn't do anything to help give you what you actually need in those moments, particularly since there are triggers everywhere. It's impractical to suggest trying to willpower or busy your way through every trigger for the rest of your life. And just so you know that I get it, my own mindless, emotional, and even binge eating used to be so bad that I would go to bed most nights actually afraid I was going to die in my sleep. Like, I would eat that much. My heart would palpitate. My fingers would literally be numb, and I would be throwing up in my mouth and so full that I could not take deep breaths. So however bad you think you're eating right now, trust me, I get it. My drive to eat was strong, and now it's just gone. all of it. I have not been mindlessly snacking at all through all of this. I don't even think about food or eat until I'm comfortably full anymore. And I would tell you that that's how good my self-control is now, except that I don't even feel like self-control. It's self-control. It's just all of those thoughts and driving forces are gone. When I notice my stomach sending me a cue that I'm hungry, I make a decision about what I want to eat based on how I feel. Maybe I feel like a sandwich. Maybe I'm not really hungry and I feel like a bowl of broccoli. Maybe I just feel like something sweet and I want a few pieces of candy. Maybe I haven't had pizza in a while and I feel like a couple slices of pizza. Maybe I didn't have enough green things today and I'm craving a salad. Let me tell you, 10 years ago, I never thought I would ever be craving a salad or vegetables, but here we are. I eat what I want when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full enough that I just don't want anymore. And that's how this process is supposed to work. We are born into bodies that can be trusted with food. We just get stuck trying to listen to a lot of destructive messaging about food and with brains that take over the decision-making process. And I never thought that I could live this free from it all. And it's a sentiment I hear all the time in my clients. And so how? Well, because once I understood all of the stuff that wasn't my fault, and it was just being driven by stuff that was going on inside, I let it all be okay. And I went inside to start working on changing it. That's what you have to do, because cognition, what our brain does, so our thoughts and our beliefs, and behaviors, what our bodies do, which is, emotions, physical states, actions, and behaviors, are inseparable. They are completely connected. So I created cognitive eating to combine mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and some intuitive eating elements into a step-by-step process that focuses on these struggles. Because like with everything else in life, our relationships with food, ourselves, and our bodies are formed through those thoughts, the habits, the beliefs, and behaviors that are usually unconsciously happening behind the scenes and develop over the course of our lives. Those are the things that drive our behaviors. They drive why we eat the way we eat. So in the example that I gave earlier to help illustrate how this plays out in real life, I talked about the thoughts creating feelings of fear, dread, overwhelm, right? And all of those feelings driving us to the pantry. That's how this process works. Another example that almost everybody can relate to in normal times even is, this whole concept about sugar or certain foods being bad. So we're told that sugar's bad, it's addictive, we shouldn't be eating it. So the thought, sugar's bad, it's addictive, I can't have that, creates the belief that we should never eat it again. And that if we do, we're somehow bad. That creates a fear response in our brain that causes us to crave, cave, and even in a lot of cases, in my case for sure, self-punish by eating more of it. Have you ever eaten something bad, swearing you were only going to have a little bit, and then noticed yourself talking yourself into eating a whole lot more, and maybe so much that you felt sick? Because you think, may as well eat the rest of it, I already screwed up anyway. That's a perfect example of that cycle in action. That's what that is. Now, some actionable steps that you can practice in case this is happening so much that it's starting to make you not feel good, because that's not ideal. Nobody wants that. I mentioned a minute ago that it requires going inside. So we use the mindful awareness to first start being aware of our thoughts. So always noticing, what are we saying to ourselves? And noticing, how are those thoughts making us feel? What are some of the things that we commonly do when we feel that way? And we use that awareness to evaluate the validity of our thoughts. So is that thought even true? Something I hear people talking about lately is how terrible everything in the world is right now and the world is falling apart. That's a really catastrophizing thought that's really scary. But is that really true? Like, there are some cracks in society maybe, and things feel kind of scary, but is the world really falling apart? So we evaluate the validity of our thoughts. And we ask, is that thought helping me or is it making me feel worse? And if it's making me feel worse, we work to change them. What can I tell myself instead? So if we hear ourselves getting into all of these catastrophizing thoughts about the world falling apart and all of that, we can recognize that's making me feel worse. What can I tell myself instead? Or how can I focus on some Gratitude, where can I change perspective to make this feel better? We go inside of our bodies to learn to listen to them. And we give them more power over the decisions that we make for them, rather than letting our brain do so unconsciously. And we learn to better manage our emotions. I shared a few strategies for finding calm in last week's event. The recording is on all of our YouTube channels. And one of the things that I shared were these 5 shifts. I think Michelle was on that slide a few minutes ago. We didn't coordinate the slides very well. And so these 5 shifts to start practicing, but these are actually the core principles that I've built into cognitive eating because they change everything. So the first one is permission, full permission to eat whatever you want, whenever you want. This works by correcting two causes. First, the restriction that makes your brain freak out and crave things. And second, how to stop, it helps you stop self-punishing behaviors that are related to any guilt and shame that you feel around the way that you eat. So permission, first step. Next one is acceptance. Acceptance is huge because without it, we're just going through life full on rejecting everything. And there's so much about life that we can't change. There's so much about ourselves that we can't change. And rejection isn't healthy, nor does it promote healthy behaviors, especially when it's our own rejection. So the sooner that we can just accept ourselves and that this is just where we are, and that we do have the power to change it, the sooner we can just get to work, or at least find some peace. Next up is kindness. There are a million reasons you need to be kinder to yourself. I said this last week, starting now. Not the least of which is because you'll never find the answers you're looking for while you're beating on yourself, nor will you ever be happy. And compassion. Studies have shown that people who practice self-compassion are happier, healthier, more resilient, and more successful than people who don't. I cannot stress how important self-compassion is. It helps us to learn to be more kind and manage emotions. And then the last one is curiosity. So most people get scared of the permission element, and rightly so. Permission alone isn't always a magic fix. It also requires the elements I just said, and curiosity, because that's where awareness comes in. Start noticing how you feel after you eat things. Like, how are the things that you're eating making your body feel? What makes your body feel its worst? What makes it feel its best? Why do you want to eat that thing in the first place? So how the heck do we put this together into a real life practice? Stop trying to be good with food. Just eat whatever you want. This helps remove the added fear and guilt that food rules create, and it helps to stop the cravings and obsessions caused by food restriction. I know that it feels scary, but as I always ask clients, how is trying to be good and restrict working for you? The next one is to just pause for a second before eating and ask, am I physically hungry right now? Do a quick body scan to notice what you're feeling. This helps to start reconnecting with your body from the inside. We tend to spend all of our time looking for solutions to our problems in everything outside of us. But we actually experience life from inside of our bodies. So if we want to change what we are experiencing in life, that's where we have to go. We have to go inside and start noticing and connecting with everything we're thinking and feeling, and noticing how our choices are impacting how we're feeling. This is a really important point to drive home. If you want to change the way you're experiencing life, that is the way that you eat, think, feel, and act, you have to make those changes by going into your body and deeply connecting with what you experience life in your body right now, with no judgment around your choices, and with a heart full of love and compassion. Notice, what is it like to experience life in my body in this moment? What is it like to experience life in my body if I mindlessly overeat things that don't make me feel good? Remember, no judgment, because those choices are serving some kind of purpose, so it's okay. It's just really about noticing, living in, and really feeling that experience from a place of love and compassion. What does it feel like? What would you say to your daughter or your friend if she was eating in ways that were making her feel that way? And do you really want to keep feeling that way, if assuming you're making choices that don't make you feel good? And what does it feel if you eat a cookie instead of broccoli? And it's not about the cookie being wrong or bad, or the broccoli being right. It's about noticing, how does each make it physically feel to live in my body? I've had many clients go through this process and then start noticing that certain vegetables give them cramps and make them feel awful. But they never noticed before because they were so busy trying to force themselves what they thought that they were supposed to, in order to be good, they were completely unaware of the impact the things that they were eating were having on their bodies. And I'm just pulling out 2 random foods. And it is not meant to suggest that I'm suggesting eating cookies instead of vegetables, only to point out that your body will tell you. And as you begin to learn about what makes your body feel its best, by physically experiencing a little bit of that discomfort, you begin to want the things that make you feel terrible less and less. Think of it like touching a hot stove, only not so dramatically. You'd only burn yourself once or twice, or maybe a few times if you're a slow learner like me, before you'd actually start thinking, yeah, I really don't want to burn myself again, right? Now, in some instances, it may be enough to get warnings from others that this thing is bad, right? We don't have to step out in front of a car to know that we don't want to get hit by a car. But with food, it's different because we tend to build such deeply rooted, very personal relationships with food. So for many of us, we really need to make that physical connection between the food and the unwanted feeling. This food makes me feel that way, and I don't want to feel that way. I cannot possibly overstate how powerfully transformative this switch is. And then 3, if you're not physically hungry, that's a cue that you have been triggered by something. So notice what just happened. What was I just thinking about? What am I feeling emotionally? What do I actually need right now? And again, 2 big ones to always ask. How will I feel if I eat that? And do I want to feel that way? This helps create the space of awareness between trigger and behavior. And that space is where your power lies. That's where automatic programming can start to get rewired because it shuts the behavior off long enough for you to then make a conscious choice. That's the first step. So 4 is learn to understand your emotions without food. How? It depends on the emotion and the situation. Sometimes simply looking for ways to change your perspective on things can help. For example, what can I find to be grateful for right now? Sometimes reducing or eliminating triggers can help. Is the news or social media triggering me to feel terrible? Well, then I stop engaging with so much of it. And sometimes you really just have to sit with and be with them. Bring in the self-compassion element with what you're feeling. Name and accept whatever it is that you're feeling. Like, I'm feeling super anxious right now, and that's okay. Remind yourself, everybody gets anxious sometimes. That's normal. And extend yourself kindness. Put your hands over your heart if you have to and repeat things like, I choose to send this feeling kindness. Sometimes our pain and our suffering and our uncomfortable emotions really just need to be seen, heard, and given love. Excuse me. So it boils down to this, basically. When we remove all of the thoughts about what we should or shouldn't be eating, what's good or bad, there are no judgments of food present. So all of the feelings and behaviors that are being driven by those thoughts are gone. When we rewrite our brain to stop believing that food is the answer to everything, and we stop being driven to eat nonstop every time we're potentially triggered, those things are just gone. They don't exist anymore. And when those things are gone, the way that we eat just changes on its own permanently, and the way that we feel changes on its own permanently, because we stop contributing to our suffering with all of those fear and guilt and shame-based emotions around what we're eating and why we're eating. This is the power of staying connected to ourselves. And I know I'm running out of time here, so I just want to finish off with a super quick body connection exercise, because I talked a lot about that, and I wanted to sort of demonstrate with you what that looks like. And I've been kind of talking kind of fast, so I want to calm things down and chill things out a little bit. So let's begin by taking a moment together to just allow your body to settle into a comfortable position. And you're going to close your eyes down. And you're going to allow your shoulders to soften. And we're just going to check in with our bodies, helping to settle the mind and to notice what physiological sensations and emotions might be present right now. What are you feeling? Begin by taking a full breath in and a long breath out. Bringing awareness to the top of your body, your head, your face, your neck, your shoulders. Noticing any sensations, any movements, any places of tightness. Now moving down to the arms and the hands. Sensing the back of the body, the front of the body. What are you feeling in your chest right now? What are you feeling in your belly right now? Sensing yourself seated, feeling the contact of your body with the chair or the cushion beneath you. Now sensing your upper legs, your lower legs, and your feet. Noticing if there are any particular places that are calling out for attention, places where sensations feel tight or strong or heavy or achy or particularly vibrant or dynamic. Scanning to see if there are places where there are lack of sensations or only faint sensations. So right now in this moment, what do you feel? Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? Can you describe it? Now sensing the whole body breathing. What does your body need right now? Finishing with a full deep breath in and a long deep breath out. Just before I pass you over to Michelle, does anybody want to share anything that they felt in that or anything that came up for them in that quick body connection?
I was just surprised at how easily that works. And I never thought to do it, but
yeah, it's so simple.
Very simple and effective for me. It's really effective.
Yeah. And we never do it. Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right, that's it. I'm done. It's Michelle's chance to share with you some of her wisdom.
Okay, thank you, Roni.
My pleasure.
Try to pull this up here. Okay, so I'm going to take on a bioenergetic wellness journey. So my perspective comes from where you want to be. So Roni has walked you through where you are, how things are happening, what you're experiencing, how you can bring that in and feel that inside. And now that you have that knowledge, how do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want it to be like? And to be able to go towards that vision. So I have a diagram here. What I'm going to do is just give it to you in real life. So I'm going to stop the share as soon as I can find the cursor. Okay, and bring you to the possibilities here that I can share. I'm just going to change my viewpoint so I can find things. Okay, so I'm going to step back. If you're at your desk, if you have a chance to slide your chair out of the way and come to a standing position, this is going to be very helpful. And I can see some people, can't see everybody, but as long as you can see me, that will be the important part. So what you're going to do is just plant your feet on the floor and be very comfortable where you are. Let your knees relax, let your hips relax. And what I would like you to do is just let your body be in that moment. Same with what Roni was doing when she was bringing you through that center. Just be there and nice deep breath. And now what I'd like you to do is just think yes. And as you're thinking yes, just see where your body decides to move to. So my yes is going forward. My body is swaying forward. Okay. And now what I want you to do is just come back to that center again. And what I want you to feel is where no is going to take you. If you think no, just see where the body goes with that. Okay. Now I can't see everyone. I can see a couple people. So for those people that I can see, if you can do a thumbs up if you felt the body sway in one direction and then in the other direction. Perfect. So you have a yes and you have a no. Excellent. Okay. So now what I would like you to do is just give a tug on your hair and see if you go to a yes or a no. Just give a little tug. See what happens. Okay, so now it could be sideways that you move, could be front and back, could be around in a circle. Everybody's a little bit different. When you tug, if you go to a yes, that is telling you you have enough water in your system. If you go to a no, it tells you you should probably drink a little more water. So if you got a no, it would be very valuable to have a sip of water at this point. Thank you, Tina. All right, and that means the body actually is going to be responding to cues that you have because you are hydrated. Lots of times we go to the kitchen to eat something because we're thirsty, but we actually don't know we're thirsty. We go for the food, not realizing, oh yeah, it has been a couple of hours since I had a drink of something. And for those people that like to drink caffeinated beverage, if you're drinking tea or coffee, that can be a dehydrator. So if you haven't had water for a while, you just need that in the system, and that's your cue. When you tug on the hair, it's a sensory system that comes through the skin that goes into the system to tell how are you. And what we're doing with that body pendulum is we're just accessing information in the body that can tell us cues, which we normally wouldn't be listening to. Okay, so you have that. So here's what you can do food-wise. This does not work for cookies, it doesn't work for chocolate, and it doesn't work for cake. So I just thought I'd say that now, because if you go and grab that, the body will go to yes, just because the way sugar works. Okay, so I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab, I have a red pepper. And if I put that in front of my belly, my body will tell me whether or not I'm bioenergetically supported, meaning it's going to give my body energy to eat this food. Okay, so you could pretend you have a red pepper, just imagine it there, and see what your body does with that. Okay, so for those that I can see, have we got some yeses that red pepper's okay? Do we have some where there's a no? Okay, I'm going to grab one that most people grab as a good energy source, the banana. Putting that in front. So if you imagine the banana, if you don't have one, just imagine what I've got and see where your body goes with this. Interesting. Most of the time I get a no at the moment I have a yes. So if the body is going to be supported by eating your banana, you're going to have a yes, which means it's going to give you energy. If you get a no, it means it's going to take a lot of energy for your body to process this in order for it to be used. So it might not be your best choice. Maybe a red pepper would be a better choice. Now you can start to think bioenergetically, which is, how do I support my body to optimize my energy building? So when we go into the kitchen and we have that emotional, I need something, if you can stop for a moment and go, what do I need? And you go, oh, bananas are good for you, that's what I'll do. And the body goes, I'm sorry, but that's not going to help you. And you can go, oh, what other choice do I have? Again, don't go for the cookie, because if you test it, it may say yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right choice. Now, if you feel like you really want a cookie, like Roni was saying, sometimes having the cookie is an emotional satisfier, and that is important. So that's okay. But if you're looking for bioenergetically how you can support the body, you can do it that way. I have some apple cider vinegar, so you could give that a try. So if you want to just stand up and see if that works, just imagine it in front. And I have not at this time, which is really good for me to know, because I usually put apple cider vinegar in my water at some point in the day. But I want to put it in when it's going to give me the most energy. And right now is not that time. Okay, one more piece that I thought I would try, because a lot of us will go for nuts because it's protein and it's good for you. But are the nuts actually going to help give you energy? So I just have some almonds, and I had brought these out to see what would happen. And I'm getting the same response again. The almonds are not going to provide me with energy at this time. So if I go to the kitchen, I'm looking and I'm going, oh, if I ate the almonds, they could give me an energy drop, which for me then would signal me to go, I'm still hungry, and I'll go look for something else. So this is a way for me to find something that will energy-wise boost me up and then leave that energy up. And then I usually don't come back to the kitchen again, because I'm satisfied and off I go to do something else. Okay. So that gives you a little bit of the world that comes from bioenergetic wellness. I learned it through Touch for Health, and I can test different parts of the system to find out what each system is looking for and how I can assess it, and then I can assist it with whatever it's looking for. But that's a really good one if you don't know where to start and you have this, I'm going to make a change, I'm going to do something different, and then start to play. Usually the foods we eat 5 times or more in the week are something that actually gives us a reaction, and sometimes not an allergy reaction, but a sensitivity reaction. And so we actually go to that food a lot because of that reaction, and it helps us emotionally. And so when we start to figure out that trigger, we can let those ideas go, and we can start to choose the things that really do support us. Okay, so we played with that little tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the next little tool, which is your posture. Okay, and so I'm just going to go back to my share screen for a moment. I have, just bring this one back up. Okay, so what we did is we worked with the body pendulum, and we also checked for hydration. That's on the slide there. There's my little piece here. And so if I go to the next one, posture. A lot of us, yes, we're sitting at our desks. We're doing a lot more work at our desks. And we often think that our posture is a result of what we're doing, which is true. So if I'm working on my computer, I'm working on a laptop, I'm usually not in a very good chair. I'm often working on what I'm doing, and I start to lean into my computer a little bit more, then my neck starts to go, and then I have that hunched over kind of thing happening. We often look at that as the indicator of we should have better posture when we're at the computer. But if you think about it from a different perspective, what is it your body is telling you energetically at that moment? Usually for me, I've been sitting at my computer for several hours. My body has been taking in that beautiful radiation off the screen for several hours. I didn't drink enough water, and energetically, it's no longer supported to hold me straight, and I start to move. And how I move can tell me what is going on in my body. So if I'm working with clients, then I can find out if we've got certain nutrients that need to be looked at, the body isn't processing a certain way, or you just are not energetically doing things that will support. So in your desk at the moment, if you've had your drink of water, I'm just going to pull myself back a little bit here on my stool. So if I sit up where my straight is, plant my feet flat on the floor, which sometimes when I'm at my desk, I'm pulling my feet underneath and I cross them, or I'll put my feet out in front and cross them and then lean back on my tailbone. And then I've shut off the cerebral spinal pump, which is nourishing my spine and my brain. So if I put my feet flat on the floor, sit up nice and tall and straight, take a couple deep breaths in, and if you go back to that beautiful meditation that Roni did, if you go back to that, what did that feel like? Those nice deep breaths. All of a sudden, you don't have a computer body anymore. Isn't that interesting? So if you just take a few moments to think about what it is you're doing and how did you get there, you can change it. If you go back to this straight posture, cerebral spinal fluid is engaged. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more to make that happen, but let's say that it's engaged and everything's going. Now you can imagine how much quicker you'll be thinking at the computer and how much faster you'll be able to get some of your work done. And it might be you need to go for a walk and then come back, and you'll be more efficient than if you'd stayed there. Okay, so we can do the same thing if we're looking at the standing posture. So I just have the little figurine pieces there so you could see. And I'm gonna just pull the screen off here so I can play with this. If you would stand for me and take a little notice of this one. So as you stand, and you can probably see into your computer, you can see how you're standing there. Just assess, where are the ears, where are the shoulders, where are the hips? Are your hands even on both sides while you're standing there? A lot of my students in Tai Chi, when we come into class and they come in with their day bodies, they haven't moved themselves into a Tai Chi body yet, they'll stand. And I will see the head tilt. I'll see maybe a compact of shoulder and hip on one side. I might see the hips lock up and knees lock, and there's a thrust that goes forward. So they'll be standing there talking like this. Each posture that they hold while they're standing or sitting is telling about what is happening energetically in the body. And if we know how to read it, we can know how to change it. The same can be said for which leg do you cross over. Some people will cross their legs while they're sitting. It's usually the same leg. That's because it's a pattern of energy that's happening in the body, and the body will shift to that. If you are really comfortable with what you're doing, you'd have 2 feet on the floor and you'd be sitting up nice and tall, or you'd be standing flat on both feet and standing straight up nice and tall. Okay, so I'm going to just go quickly to the last slide because then we will really love to hear from you, and you can give us some background of some of the things that you've been noticing. So I'm just going to go to the last one, and this is what I gave you last time. This afternoon I will have this as a hand up back on my website, and also it'll come out as email later this afternoon once we get the video together. So last time I talked about ESRs, fingertips on the forehead, and I just have some steps there. Picture what you want. Identify the emotion that's going to get you there, and then hang on. Nice deep breathing, and you'll get there. We did psychological reversal. So I put the phrase in that's there, despite feeling stressed or whatever, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself. So there was that tool we did last time. An emotional freedom technique. And I ran through all those points last time. And this time I put in a phrase for you where you can, with each tap, I release my anger, and you can come through, or my sadness, whatever you want to identify. And then you can replace it with, going through the next times, I feel love, I find joy, I feel satisfied. And you can just change the words as you go. And the cook's hookup at the end is crossing hands over, and it was on last week's video, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to let that go, but I wanted you to know it was there because those tools are very helpful in stressful situations when you want to run to the kitchen. So I'm going to stop there, and we welcome any comments or questions to come forward.
Okay, I'll go. I have a question for you. When we're doing the exercise where you're holding the food in front of your abdomen, you kept on saying, okay, your body will tell you if this food is going to give you energy or take too much energy to process it. Can you also ask if it's good for you, like if it's providing the vitamins it needs instead? Or because I know sometimes it's not about the energy, it's about the nutrients it's going to give you at that time.
Absolutely. The only thing is you have to really know what the right language is to ask. So you can ask the question, is this good for me? And the body could say, oh yeah, it's good for you. And you go, oh, yep, it's good for me. But you're using language. So you truly try to get rid of language. So that's why I did the yes and the no, is because if I go back here and put the banana here, I don't say anything. Where do I go? And now it's telling me no. But I didn't ask a question because I could say, is this banana good for me? And it's pulling me straight forward, but it's not good for me at this time. So you can see how language could be a barrier. And when we're doing, that's called muscle monitoring. When we're doing muscle monitoring, we want to get away from language because we don't always get the words quite right. So
okay, so it's best is to not use any language at all. Just focus on, just think about the food in front of you. Okay.
Just think about it. And that's it. Yeah.
Thanks.
And that's at its most basic component. With the work that I do, I can go much deeper with it. But for what we're looking at today and how you can make good choices, that's the fastest and easiest way. Just get out of our heads. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay.
Quiet bunch.
That's right. Everybody's got it, except they're all thinking about what they're going to eat for lunch now.
Anybody have any other questions or comments from last week or this week? Oh, all quiet. Well, we do have the videos online, like Michelle said, on all of our YouTube channels, and I know Tina shared it with you in an email, and we will send that information out to you again after this week. Roni, Michelle said they would stay after, and if you have any questions, we're going to stop the video and shortly, and then as soon as I give the ending and the preview for next week. So if you want to stay back and you have some questions for Roni or Michelle, and it won't be recorded, so it'll be a quiet session, and I think there's 12 of us online, so it's you can do that. So just a reminder for next week, we have mindful movement. So Michelle will be our lead on that week, and as we explore the ways to be engaged in our activities and how to optimize energy building in all that we participate in. We will leave some time at the end of the session for questions and answers from all 3 weeks. So if you get a chance to go back over the last couple of weeks before next week's session, that would be great. And then the ladies will help to answer questions. You will need to register for next week again, please, and then you get the email follow-up. Tina's going to put the link so that you can register for next week's session in the chat, and we will send it out again with the follow-up information. So thank you again for coming along. Stay well, everyone. I know it's been a very tough week in Nova Scotia. It's not our normal, well, pandemic isn't normal, but like I say, with the events that happened in Colchester is not easy. I believe the television stations are all having a tribute tonight to the families and the lost victims. So if you're interested and want to do that, I know sometimes that's too much information for people to take on. I've had a few nights that I just have to step away from that. And at 2 o'clock today, they're asking everyone to respect 1 minute of silence. So if you want to take 1 minute to just, ask that our energy goes to those families in support of getting through this. So thank you again, Roni and Michelle. Thanks everyone for coming. And we'll see you again next week. Take care.